Hello, welcome to another episode of The Great Work Launchpad. My name is Kris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. Today is July 23rd, 2025, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'm going to put a link in the chat for the Video Ninja. For anyone who wants to join, participate in the live discussion, feel free to connect. You can have a little input, or you can input a lot and then leave or remain, whatever, up to you. Just make sure you have earphones on so that there's no feedback between speaker and microphone. Keep the sound only in your ears and not going into your mic. As of the Great Work Launchpad is, as the image shows, we're going to launch, right? So this is an image of the seal of the One Great Work by Mark Passio. Truth, Love, Freedom. Corresponds somewhat loosely to the trivium method. And so it's to help people get launched, launch them up into doing the great work. And part of that is the shadow work ongoing series of things within our inner constitution, facing ourselves, improving ourselves, trying to be better, such as the current segment that we're on, which is learning how to think. And bring in some guests here. We got a returning guest, Derek Bartolicelli, and another returning guest, Brandon Spencer. How you doing, fellas?
Howdy, howdy.
I can't hear you if you're on mute.
Me or Derek?
I heard you. Brandon's okay. Good, but not Derek. So yeah, as I was saying, Launchpad, launch people into the great work. Gone into the beginning parts on that, related to awakening and then initiation, and then the shadow work is an ongoing part of like the initiation, getting into it. You know, it's like the hard part that's what's holding you back. So yeah, that's what we're talking about, is getting into it and shadow work, what's holding us back. And part of that is, you know, what we're on to now is the learning how to think. So what could be holding you back is not having learned how to think properly and figuring things out. So that might be something that's preventing you from getting started, because maybe you don't even have the confidence, maybe you don't think you know enough about what you're doing or what you want to do, or you don't know what direction to go. So learning how to think is part of that process to figure out, you know, are you confident enough to talk about it? Because if you can't really talk about it well, then you don't know it well enough. So you have to get that grammar, that knowledge, that input, get more of that so that you can develop that understanding, right? So get that. As we talked about last week, we went into the trivium very briefly, and we'll go back into it today in a little more depth. That'll be helpful, rather than the cursory overview that we did last time. And so how you doing, Derek? Are you there?
Yes.
All right.
Bonjour from France. Thank you, Kris. Sorry, we're tech monkeys.
And there was someone on Telegram, I think they're in now. They had asked me questions about how to join. That was Adrian Hernandez, so that might be them. I'm going to add them in. Not seeing any video. It's the first time, so we'll see if it works or not. But
his feed is popping up on my end. Yep.
Okay, I just don't see it in the whatever, the Video Ninja on my side. I don't see it. All good, doesn't matter. Hey Adrian, I'm assuming it's Adrian or maybe it's someone else. All right, I should say, who do we got here rather than assuming it's Adrian? Hello, welcome. No? Can you hear us? Yeah, you down there, that guy. Do you wanna talk?
What's up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey. All right. Cool. You're there. All right. So welcome. Yeah. I'll I guess I can get started on what we're gonna talk about. And
What's going on? Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
You need to listen in the. It seems like you're listening on the stream, so things are delayed.
About what?
Yeah. You need to listen in the.
Oh.
I've never used it, but Brandon, could you explain to him what he needs to do? Because I think he needs to listen to it in there, right? In Video Ninja.
Yeah. You have to listen to the actual video through YouTube, because it's going to be like a 15-20 second, delay. And if you're in the actual chat, then you need to listen through Video Ninja. That way there is no delay. That's only if you were, like in the actual Video Ninja link. Yeah. So you want to mute YouTube or just exit out.
All right, we got a hold on, guy. We got a first time ever. We got four more people, so 5 total. This is the max I can have. So if there's more people who want to join, let me know in the chat, and I'll have to go into a paying subscription with StreamYard or something. But for now, we haven't had this problem, so far so good. But I'm just going to create a 4 guest view.
It's not the worst problem to have, right?
No, it's good. Yeah. I gotta duplicate this one.
What's up, Jerry?
So that one's just a browser. Just do that. Copy and paste reference.
If there is another person who wants to join, since I've joined pretty much every week, I can always back out and then let somebody else join if they want to say something, and I can always hop back in later.
Yeah, all good for now. We're so far no issues, but thank you. That's already in use. Can't rename it. Oh well, I just won't rename it. Okay. No, Jerry. All right, that didn't work. Hold on. Okay. Rather than copying, apparently I can't do that. All right, we're gonna go back to bringing Adrian in. Sorry, guys. StreamYard's a lot easier, but I'm doing it the hard way.
This is some of the things that that help people kind of get to see, some of the stuff on the back end, like some of the stuff that we all go through, doing stuff on the fly, doing stuff live, and learning, as you go.
Yeah. Okay. I think if I do that, control audio via OBS, and if I do this, he's going to take up the whole screen. There we go. All right. So I think I can move some things around here. Put me like that. Whoops. No, that doesn't work either. Anyways. It was good the way it was, I guess. I'll just leave it like this. And I'll put everyone beside each other. Okay. Alrighty then. Looks like we're good. Hey, welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. Can you
Are
hear
you
me?
muted?
Hello?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, Jerry, I
Oh,
can
oh
hear
wait.
you.
Oh, there's a setting. Yeah. Wait, hold on. There's a thing that I didn't do inside the view here. Hold on a second. 1, 2, 3. Advanced audio. I'm going to do monitor and output. Monitor and output. Okay, now try.
Mic test.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, there's that one setting I forgot. Jeez. Yeah, I'll eventually have to get StreamYard to make things a lot simpler for me. Adrian, can you try to see if you're live or if you're still on delay? Can you hear me live? No, he's still on delay. Yeah, you're gonna have to figure that out, or else you're not gonna really be able to participate in the discussion, because then you're gonna be 20 seconds behind the actual stream, so there's gonna be like a 20-second gap. So Jerry and Derek and Brandon are doing it right. They're listening in on the video ninja thing, but apparently you're not. So I don't know. Yeah, that won't work out if you're not in the actual software. The delay is going to be too big. Okay. All right. 10 minutes of technical issues, I guess, and we'll just begin. So last time on the Great Work Launchpad, we talked about the trivium at the end. So we're going to go back into the trivium and talk more about it, more in depth. So to begin with the trivium, as I was talking about last week, we are in reality. That's the red part. And our bodies are in reality and our consciousness is in reality, but we have an internal aspect of ourselves, which is the blue part here. This is the consciousness. And when we're talking about why the effects that humans create are generated, well, that's how we figure that out, is by going into this causal realm, because everything that is generated by humans is created by our behavior, which is our actions here. And that comes from our internal realm and the processes that happen within. So these are the causes. This is the causal realm. And these are the effects. The effects that happen. This is what's in existence, what is generated. And this is why it is generated. So we're not talking about why the rock is generated, why there's a tree, why there's this. Of course, you can figure out why that effect is generated, but it's not the cause of why the tree is generated or why the rock is there. It's not because of human consciousness, but we can. So there's this dual aspect of this power of causality, is figuring out the causality, trying to figure out, at least, the causality of things in existence, and certainly figuring out our own causes for what we create into existence and being able to change them, because this is why they are created. They are created because of our internal domain, and we have the capacity to understand those causal factors and then modify them. And by modifying them from this causal level, the plane of causality, then we can modify the external that is created, which is what we're trying to get at in the great work. The great work is all about ultimately ending our enslavement, ending evil, ending immorality. So that's what we're aiming to do. And that's only possible by changing our behaviors, which requires us to understand why our behaviors are taking place. Why? And that's where we start with the trivium, is before we get to the why, we are taking in what and also who, what, where, when. So it's not just what. I just abbreviated it because I ran out of space when I did my input. So things coming from everything that exists, other people's behavior, whatever's already there. Well, that's the who, the what happened, who did it, when did it happen, and what actually happened. And it could be things not related to any human behavior. And that's referred to as grammar or input or knowledge. And when you lack that, well, you have ignorance. And then with that input, it goes to thought. And this is the trinity of consciousness, where you have thought, emotion, and action. And the trivium is the grammar, logic, rhetoric, or input, processing, output, or knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. 3 ways to refer to it. So when you get that input, goes to your thought. That's the mind, the mental aspect, where you can think about things, and you have curiosity, which can lead you to take in more. You can doubt things that come in from other people or information that you receive, and you can doubt it, and then you can question it, and then you can go back and try to get more information to take in, and eventually the goal is to develop an understanding. So from your thinking, you're going to try to understand it, and that's ultimately coming to the why, the causal factor for why something is, ultimately, because the goal isn't to do nothing with it. The goal is to output in actions, and that's the output, the wisdom, the rhetoric phase, the how you're going to do something, to get into an understanding of how to change things, which is what I mentioned the great work is all about. So this is the logic and the processing, the understanding part, and if you're lacking that aspect, then you have more of an aspect of confusion relative to whatever you're talking about or whatever you could have. Well, you have confusion about it because you don't understand it, because you're ignorant of it. And that could be detrimental in ways when you're trying to act upon something that you're ignorant of, and therefore you'll be more confused about. Well, that can lead to folly, foolish behavior, foolishness. And that's the opposite of having wisdom. So before we get to there, we also have our emotion, or referred to as the heart. And our thoughts and emotions can feedback before we even feedback between our actions and those actions affecting the world, and then feeding back on our input. Even when we act on things, we can that's an input that we receive on how we acted, and then we can think about it, and then the process can go on even within our own behavior. But it goes out into the world, and ultimately, like, it can feedback. But other people's behaviors comes in. So when we're thinking about things, there's emotion. Emotion doesn't happen without thought. There's always a thinking component, whether it's subconscious or automatic. But the goal is to try to, instead of just reacting from an emotional capacity, to put a gap between the stimulus, as I have it here, the stimulus and the response. Well, you don't want to just have things happen, or people get you mad, or you get mad at something, you get mad at someone, and then you're just going to respond immediately. That can create suboptimal outcomes. So you're going to put a gap between that stimulus and that response. You're going to engage in this thinking. So there's an initial thought, but then there's deeper thought. And that's where you're processing, and you're going to engage in logic and try to understand things more deeply, rather than just immediately engage in an action, in a response. You're going to try to respond or react with more deliberate intent and more will being applied, instead of an automatic subconscious or unconscious processes within the structure of your brain and your psyche, that you're going to take the time to choose how to act rather than act automatically, because one is involuntary. So the goal is to apply your will, and will is voluntary. So when you're just responding or reacting immediately or instinctually, then that's more of an involuntary response, because you still need that time to do the processing of that input. I'm not saying it's all cases. Some cases you can, you already know how to respond, and it takes you a split second or something. So I'm not saying it's in all cases that it'll be involuntary, but you already know what to do, and you're making that choice, but you can make it quickly. But many times you're not making that choice. You're just making a quick response, a quick reaction, and it can be less than optimal. It can have negative, knee-jerk, as Anarkarika mentions. Yeah, that's it, knee-jerk. And So that this process is something we already engage in, everyone already engages it, but to understand it is something else, because then you can understand how your own internal processes work, and then you can be more empowered through that understanding to amplify certain aspects of it, as opposed to just engaging it in an automatic process, an intuitive process, the process that's going on in your life. Whether you understand this or not, it's already happening. But when you can understand it more and the different aspects of it, then you can be empowered to choose more optimal outcomes, more beneficial outcomes for yourself and potentially for others. So that pretty much explains like the main part of the wheel. And of course, the central part of the wheel is the care. And the care is at the center because it all revolves around the care. Because you have to care, things will come into your life anyways, and there'll be inputs, but to get more out of it, when you engage in curiosity and doubt and question, well, you have to care about what's coming in to engage in that process. And if you don't, you have apathy. And if you care about doing the wrong things, you have a dark care. And if you care about doing what's right, then you have true care. But you can't just care about doing what's right. You have to actually have the objective knowledge, the knowledge of the objective difference between right and wrong behavior. And if you don't have that, then you can care about doing what's right. You can care about truth. You can care about moral truth. But that doesn't mean you're going to act that way. So you don't really have true care. You want to do the right thing, but you might not be able to because you lack the proper input that would provide you with the understanding, or maybe you could understand it yourself, which is possible. You don't need, to read books or podcasts or anyone else explaining it to you. Maybe you could figure it out, but you have to have that deeper understanding of objectively why your definitions and your conclusion is that way. And that's what the understanding of objective morality is for. And that's what true care is once you have that, then you can use that care, that true care, to drive you in this whole process. Ultimately, in your actions, the output that you're going to create into the world is going to be aligned with true care. And that's where your will and your courage is properly activated, as opposed to having dark care, which then leads to your will and courage being towards malevolent things, immoral things. And if you have apathy, well, you're still going to have certain amounts of will to do things, courage to do things, but it won't be in alignment with true care necessarily. It'll be in disregard of true care and care for what is morally right to do, because you don't have the care for truth, or you don't have a deep enough care for truth to be activated to get you to that point of being the hangman in the tarot cards, of serving natural law, serving justice. So that's all deeper symbolism. People can go look into Mark Passio's material if they want to see what that's about. Yeah, hold on a second. Just going to come back here since Adrian dropped out. And yeah, so what's coming in is known as a reaping. So this relates to karma, the whole conception of karma, which I've gone into in my Law of Freedom series. And you reap what you sow. So it's not only what you sow, but what others sow. What others sow in reality, well, they are engaging in this process of things they think about that lead to how they feel, that lead to how they're going to act, and then they sow in reality. So your random free will component is going to influence existence by creating actions, the effects that affect and influence external reality. And, well, when they do that, well, you might be affected by it, so you're going to reap something. So it could be that you're going to sow something and then you're going to reap what you sow yourself. But usually it's with interactions with others that when you do something wrong, well, they can potentially create negative consequences for you. So then that's where the concept of a payback comes in, where you're going to reap what you sow. And I'll leave it there for anyone who wants to add their input, and we can progress from there.
The big payback, James Brown. Um, for anyone who's kind of struggling, to kind of, grasp what we're saying, it's always best to go and listen to the, what I think the 12 videos before this. But the main point of this is because, humans say they want to be free, like humans say they want things, but we don't understand the requirements that come along, the conditions that have to be met in order for us to get to, this goal. Well, this is what Kris is trying to lay out is knowing how to properly think and knowing how to correctly discern truth from falsehood is a requirement in order for us to, start to move that pendulum toward freedom. So what Kris is laying out is the process, as far as, have the trivium, in a means of truth discovery, in means of taking in, knowledge and what you do with that knowledge. And processing that knowledge in order to weed things out, weed out inconsistencies, weed out the fallacies, and doing this big investigation. So once you come to that, that general premise, which would be, how that trickling down, that filtration process, then you have something that is left over, then you can start to put that back out into the world. This is how we, learn things by putting stuff back out in the world so other people can verify it and therefore not just, grow from individual level, but help others grow. And therefore we can move that pendulum toward freedom, which is what most people say they want. So these are the requirements: learning how to think, help stop lying to yourself, going within the self and learning, how you operate, learning how your psyche operates, like Kris was just saying. Because if you don't know that you are in this reactive, subconscious, programming, then how can you ever break that programming? That's getting to the why and the problem solving skills that that has to be understood in order for us to get out of the problem. And that's why we can't get out of the problem, because a lot of people haven't recognized the problem because they don't know how to how to think, because they don't know how to correctly discern and take in information to even get to that logic part. And like I've always said, where you get your information from as far as the first step, in the grammar is very critical. So you need to be conscious, you need to be hell aware of the information that comes into your psyche. You see people talking about health and, like all of this, stuff focused on the physical body. But why is it that people don't focus on the, health information that comes into the mind, how that mental health? Hell, I'll pass it on to Derek.
Cheers, brother. Yeah, we got to keep our health hermetically sealed, and on the reel to reel, I've done some pretty cool short reels on that, even featured Brandon Spencer in one. But yeah, but going to the Hermetica, it all goes back to our state of mind. And Kris has documented this in numerous infographics and all that. And I see the two planes, the plane of cause and the plane of effect, right? Cause and effect. Got to pause for respect, right? And think about these things and recognize and realize that the plane of causality stems from the mind. All these thoughts and ideas that are getting transferred into manifested action and all that stuff. And the action part are the resulting effects of what stems from the mind. So if people cannot grasp that, they're going to be struggling on that plane of effects for however long it takes for them to get out of that predicament. And so, people might be wrestling with their thoughts about this a lot. They might even want to choke slam them and whatever, like take it to WWE or whatever, right? Just trying to be funny. But we don't see our thoughts, right? That's something to really consider, because there's a lot of people still hinging off of the idea that, like seeing is believing, but, in their everyday existence, they're not seeing what they're thinking, unless they're actually manifesting and being the causal factor of their life. And, even, using the pen, holding that Excalibur penmanship to script your book of life the way you want to, and being empowered through that process, even if we're all caught up in the matrix and all that stuff, and it doesn't always make sense, but we're trying to maneuver in and out of this shit and dismantle it at the same time. And I got that Aquarian state of mind, which people need to check out their astrological charts and positions on certain things, because it has an influence. And my moon is in Aquarius, and so like, you take these attributes and aspects of these archetypes of consciousness and whatever, and the Aquarian mind, what is that about? Like, it's going over an eclectic perspective of things, and it's like, for me, it's unavoidable. I have to like see things from so many different aspects, and I kind of have this analogy in my mind, trying to just articulate things better within myself, right? And that, yes, not all the thoughts that cross our minds are of our own thinking, right? We have to really be able to distinguish the difference between our own thoughts and exterior programmings and influences and whatever, persuasions and all that stuff. So I take it like this, and I'll pass it off after this. Think of yourself, your brain is like a subway, and there's traffic all the time. There's multiple, you guys been down underground in a subway station? You see different tracks. Think about your train of thoughts. Follow me on this wordplay, right? Because there's trains passing all day, every day, 24/7. It's not your typical metro station, but in the mental landscape, this is what happens. There's all these, thoughts that are crossing our mind all the time. Are they our own? Are you able to identify that? Are you able to bypass, certain trains that are coming across your brain that just aren't your own? And maybe they might be helpful for yourself, or they're just, distortions of reality and truth and all that stuff. So you don't hop on those trains. You let them pass by. The thoughts that are congruent with natural law and objective morality, those are the ones you want to hop on and ride those, and level up and discover more about yourself, this reality, and solutions to get out of the muck and mire, as Brandon was alluding to in regards to the requirements for freedom and all this stuff, which is what the great work is really all about, right? So yeah, lift off, mother lovers. Launchpad shit. Jerry, what's good, yo? Or Adrian, what's
Yo,
up?
Is Adrian still here? Oh, he left.
Anyways, go for it, Jerry.
Yeah, disconnected, and then I think he keeps trying to rejoin. Like someone joins and then leaves and joins and leaves and joins and leaves. So I'll try again.
Oh,
But go ahead.
well, all right. Well, that was great, Derek and Brandon and Kris. So I just took a few notes. I'll just speak what I wrote and maybe add a few more sentences to that. But what I got from this was bypassing the logic is crucial. And I had a recent example in my life where I did that. And, there's consequences to that, negative consequences. So this part is absolutely crucial in our everyday lives. And so what I wrote was, how the news, how they just repeat news. I mean, something can happen and they're immediately spreading that information, not even knowing if it's true. And that immediately gets propagated to the masses. And someone like Richard Grove will analyze the news because thinking takes time. And then he will give a breakdown of what he thought. So I just wanted to make that point, and that's all I have, really.
All right. Thanks for your input, guys. And just wanted to go to this. This was one I made in one of my first infographics, 2014. It correlates like the natural law expressions from Passio on this side relating with love and fear. So initial, internal, external, and then the generated reality. In the moral application, the trivium application, and then as levels of consciousness, and then the contrary, from fear instead of from position of love, of apathy and fear. And I just wanted to, I'll just go into this one. People can find it on my site. It's Natural Law Consciousness Chart, or Natural Law Chart. You'll be able to find it. Not too hard. Because it has some good points on like specifics. Brandon mentioned in the logic part, filtering. So I'll just read the grammar. Knowledge input is gathering data on reality, who, what, where, when. Objective reality of characteristics, the aspects, the qualities, attributes, properties of what is the current condition with acceptance and not denial. And you can deny it later when you figure out if it's false, but when it's coming in, you just have to let it come in, not accept it as true, but accept it as the way things are. And that's one of the problems with another aspect of shadow work is people are in denial of the way reality is, and they don't want to accept the current condition as it is, part of the dreaming and lying to yourself. They want reality to be a different way, so they don't see it as the way it is. They have maybe rosy colored glasses on, and they think everything is nice and peachy, but it's not. So this is more the right-brained aspect of open acceptance of things coming in, so that you can then properly discern in the next phase. So this is the metaphysics, all the qualities, the aspects, the characteristics of things. And this also deals with the quadrivium, because quadrivium is quantification. It all deals with numbers themselves as arithmetic, numbers as in space as geometry, numbers in time as music, or numbers in time and space as astronomy. So they all deal with numbers, and it's all quantification. And these are numbers themselves are a metaphysical aspect, because you could have two oranges in front of you. The oranges are real, but the two is an abstraction. So then all the numbers we have are all abstractions, and so they're metaphysical. They're beyond the physical. The number two, you don't find the number two anywhere, just like you don't find blue itself anywhere. These are abstractions. So I have a presentation on this, philosophical metaphysics, if anyone wants to look into it, based a lot on Sister Miriam Joseph's book, Trivium. And so when we get to the next part, that's where you're going to try to find the meaning and the purpose. You can think of the whole second Matrix movie, the Agent Smith character. He was big on this, talking about purpose. It's what binds us, what drives us. And we've talked about this, me and Brandon, in like 2 or 3 episodes ago. I forget which one it was, but we talked about that a bit. And so yeah, this is the why. That's what is going to the meaning and purpose and the goal and the ends you're trying to achieve. Well, that's the why you are doing something in your life. Well, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Well, you're trying to get something. You're trying to go somewhere. That's the journey of what you're trying to reach. And so this is where we get into higher definitions of things, where this is just like the input of things, where we got to make sense of it. And that's where you go deeper. Which is what a lot of my work does. Go deeper into things, and sometimes in etymology, as I've done in my earlier work. So we can higher definition for clarity and precision of terms and definitions. We correspond different things and try to make connections and link things and integrate them in a non-contradictory way. Because if you're going to link contradictory things, well, that's a fallacy. They don't connect, and that's at the heart of logic, is non-contradiction. So we got to validate the current condition in reality. Accept what's coming in, just accept what's coming in. Don't necessarily accept the false things as being true, but accept the current condition as reality, as what it is. So validate that it's actually that way and not another way. So what you took in, you accept to take it in. You don't reject it right away. But what you took in might be false, might be bullshit. So you got to validate it, and you got to filter, discern, and judge truth from lies, right from wrong. And the most important thing we're talking about is quality truths as a foundation for making decisions. And the most important quality truth is moral truth. And this is the epistemology aspect of, which is what we're talking about here, is learning how to think and how do you know what you know. Because that's what epistemology is, well, how do you know what you know? What's the process of engaging in how do you know what you actually know? And we'll be talking about that in the next segment of the shadow work and the great work Launchpad of this aspect of epistemology, because it's pretty deep. So it's within the trivium, but it's like a deeper part that I like took out of the overall aspect of the trivium. And then, the last part is the rhetoric, wisdom, output. You can have speech. You can talk about things like we're doing. You could write about things. That's how I started doing things. I was writing about it. But these are all actions. And this is the how to base our lives. Ultimately, it's all about morality. So how to base our lives and behavior on what is right, good and true and moral and not wrong, evil, immoral and false. And it's a result of that quality truth you take in. So if you take in, garbage in, tends to produce garbage out. You take quality in, well, that's the importance of taking the quality in, because it's going to end up as the result of the quality truth and the understanding that you develop. And these are the root causal factors, the ethics or the morality. It corresponds to the metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. Well, ethics can be equated to morality. If anyone wants to say anything about that, go right ahead.
The first episode you started with was stop lying to yourself, and that's not something how that you maintain like in the beginning. That's a principle that you have, because even like when you are like going through these steps, once you discover something that's true, then you have two things that can happen. You can choose to accept it and align with it, or you can not accept it and misalign to it, and then that would still be a means to living a lie. So it always goes back to caring for truth and stop lying to yourself, because that's what's needed in this process, in this journey, because many people will stumble upon like little small fragments of truth, and it may or may not be what Chris is talking about, those essential truths, but are they going to align with it and then reshape their whole means of thinking? Because like that's what we're talking about, is truth discovery. Then once you find it, what are you going to do with it? Then you have to go within yourself to reshape how your belief structure, your means of seeing yourself, means of seeing how the world. So what do you do how with once you find that truth, how once you have come to discover it? Because there's a process of how alignment that comes with that, because Chris talked about that, how non-contradictory, which that's something that we're always talking about doing, how to shadow work, but also too when it comes to your thinking, in order to get to that means of logic, you have to get to that state where you weed out those contradictions and how you weed out those fallacies, because if not, then you'll always be, going held back and forth, creating that internal friction, which is going to lead you, possibly hell away from truth and hell away from that last step, hell, which is the output and the rhetoric and putting stuff back out into the world. And that's what we see with a lot of people, like they may have started doing this work, but they haven't really, got to that last stage in the form of output and rhetoric, because they're still in some form of internal contradiction. There's still some form of internal friction, because they haven't really, gone through all of these steps, fully. And hopefully they'll can continue that progression. But Kelly, again, all of these episodes go hand in hand, and they all go together. Stop lying to yourself. Have we repeated it so many times? But again, we're going to keep repeating because these are requirements. This is something that more people are going to have to do if we want to be free.
Mais oui, les amis, in the place to be. Yeah, Kris. Yeah, great points, Brandon. By the way, yeah, for sure. Kris, you're bringing up like ethics and morality and stuff, and yeah, this super text heavy graphic, which I love. It's just like this is such a educational piece of work you put together. It's really great. You don't see many people doing this at all. Why not? Do they have the right thought? And so yeah, I'm thinking about the 8-spoke wheel of right action, right thought, and right intention, right communication, and that whole thing. I forget what it's officially called, but you guys know what I'm referencing, right?
The Eightfold
So
Path
yeah,
in Buddhism, yeah.
Word. So yeah, I mean, again, it all has to start with the right thoughts. But how do we train our thoughts to be right? We have to weigh up all these things going on, and it takes a lot of due diligence and research and introspection within oneself, of course, and also weeding out all these inconsistent, incongruent, distorted, overlaid ideas that are imposed upon us pretty much since birth, even from our parents, because not all parents are 100% conscious. Not all parents have there's not a single human being that has everything 100% correct also, which is something we need to respect and be humble about as well. So yeah, I try to keep myself in check with that in mind. And yeah, my channel Awaken Your Mind, which is something that I hold accountability to first and fucking foremost before I even open my mouth or put out content or projects or whatever, right? So yeah, I love this idea of just learn how to think, like what is it really about? Like, were we even taught this in school? It's really contradictory to what we've been indoctrinated into, in a sense. They just teach us what to learn, not how to think about things a lot of times, right? This outcome based education shitstem, right? So yeah, there's the aspect of that heart-based intelligence, that empathic aspect of feeling into things with your thoughts, and also trying to be the objective observer of your actions, so that you can learn how to properly interact and communicate with people better, navigate through this reality and that kind of stuff, and recalibrate your thought patterns so that it's more fluid with the universal laws of things, natural law, obviously. nattylaw.com, by the way. This is the t-shirt about that. So yeah, Jerry, what's good? Them One Great Work Warriors.
Yo, what up, bro? Where can I get a shirt like that? nattylaw.com?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, just something I've been thinking of as you guys were speaking was fear. I think Brandon touched on this. If there's friction in the logic state, then there's going to be inner turmoil, and it'll lead to negative, immoral consequences. And I think really love needs to be embraced in order to be able to look at the reality of things and be able to process them correctly. So that's all I have to say.
Cool. One thing I wanted to mention was, we're talking about the trivium and the whole process, and a lot of ways people explain the trivium is it's apart from how we think and learning how to think. By understanding this process, you can learn how to think, how the whole process works better, so that you can learn how to think better. And understanding ourselves, it's part of self-knowledge. But one of the other things that people refer to it is a truth methodology. And so I wanted to mention some things about that. And I think we mentioned it last week or the week before. That, it was the week before, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Well, whenever the first one was, whenever that was. So the causality, why we're trying to understand something for solving a problem, but what we're trying to get at is the truth of a problem. We're trying to get to the truth. So this is why it's all about a methodology for getting to the truth. So we talked about that a bit more in the past, and so this is the importance of epistemology, which we're going to get into eventually. Is that up here, this is all what happens in reality, and I mentioned this before. This is the external reality, and this is the internal reality, and there's a difference. They're not the same. It's not all the same red area. That's why they're in blue. External, active, where things happen. Things do happen internally, but they're all internal to yourself. So in my earlier infographics, that I have that here, where these are the internal unseen. Thoughts and emotions are internal and unseen. And what happens out here is external and it's seen, so that's why it's internal in blue. I colored it in blue. It's because it's internal, it's unseen, and versus the external. So things that are the goal is to align our internal realm. We've talked about this several times. This is our map when we're going to perceive things. Seeing is believing, that type of thing. What's coming from out here, the goal is to actually see what is out there, and not to distort it. And that's where this process can help with logic and non-contradiction, is to not distort what actually is out there, and to not engage. This is the subjective realm. This is the objective realm. So you're not supposed to project. I went into this in my morality presentation, Natural Law, the Science of Morality, Part 4, Morality, is you can have subjective ideas or desires or wants, and because you want something, that's your purpose or your goal, your end that you want, and you're going to then project your subjective inner reality onto the external reality, and that's where you get these distortions where you're going to project it based on your own subjective whims. But it could also be lies that are fed to you that you then take as reality, and then you continue. That's what's projected on to the territory, because that's your map. It's a false map, so you think that that's what reality and the territory reflects. So what I'm trying to get at here is we have to verify objective reality. That's the whole point of this process, is, and how do you know what you know, and how do you have true knowledge? Because knowledge, anyways, I won't get too much into that. That'll be the epistemology part. But knowledge isn't just truth, because what comes into you, the grammar input, the knowledge, could be something that's false. So it's not just what's true, but the goal, in terms of the epistemology aspect of knowledge, is how do you know that something is true? And that's through verification with reality. And you have to be able to verify it, and maybe test it out, and see that reality conforms to the results that you get in reality, conform to what you think is in reality. And when you can't get that confirmation, then you're just operating on a trust of what people say. So everything that comes in, people can tell you things, and when you're just going to trust, and we talked about it, I think it was the last episode or the one before that, that the belief aspect, we're going to talk about more in epistemology, is that it's a belief, a faith, a loyalty, and a trust in what other people say. So whenever someone tells you something and you're not verifying it, or you can't, you're not able to, and you could have 3 or 20 or 100 sources telling you something, then okay, you're going to have trust that all these sources are telling you something that accurately reflects reality the way they experienced it, and you're still going to be trusting in them. and that's, it could be true, but you do not know it to actually be true because you have not been able to verify. There's the stream, old episode of Causality and Consciousness on Brandon's
Hey, I
stream.
didn't plan that. I literally didn't plan that. So it's synchronistic.
Yeah, that's from 2015, I think.
Yeah.
Old presentation on this type of stuff. And so if you can't verify it, there's a lot of things I've mentioned in the previous episodes that there's going to be a lot of things we can't verify. We have to be comfortable with the curiosity and the doubt and the question, and having that gap, that void, that darkness, that abyss in our comprehension. We're not going to have answers to every question that we have, and get comfortable with that and not try to project an answer and just accept it as true or whatever someone else tells you. Because what we mostly have a lot in our lives is a lot of trust and faith and belief in loyalty in what others say. And without this process that is part of the trivium that we're going to get into more in probably the next episode, this epistemology, then you're just going to believe that the person's being honest, or that the 100 people are being honest, and that they're accurately representing reality. And so related to the great work, you can have knowledge, you can have understanding, but if you're not doing the great work, then you're not in the wisdom part. So, in all aspects of life, there's input, processing, output. There's knowledge, understanding, and wisdom in some parts of your life. But when we're talking about great work, right? This is great work Launchpad, trying to get people interested in the great work and activating themselves to do the great work. This is the understanding as it relates to the trivium, is that if you're not doing the great work, so the great work can be in many ways, but the ultimate goal of the great work, the true great work, or the one great work, is this aspect of ending enslavement, ending immorality, ending evil in the aggregate overall. So that is the end, that is the purpose, that is the drive, that is the motivation. And if you're not doing that, then you're not engaging in this wisdom aspect. So that's one thing for people to face within themselves, to do that shadow work aspect of realizing that, I got the input, the knowledge, I went through, you're in this, listening to this, or you're listening to a pastor, you're listening to a bunch of other people who've said stuff, and, you've got the understanding of objective morality, but you're not doing your part to bring about that goal of the great work of ending enslavement, ending the evil. Well, then you're not acting in the capacity of wisdom. You're only in the first two parts. And one of the things Brendan asked me at the end of the last episode, it was off air. He asked me, do you still think logic is the most important? And I hadn't thought of this, and I don't know, I guess since I ever said logic was the most important. I don't even remember ever saying that, but I guess it was in some of my old work. And I was like, let me see which one is most important. And I was thinking about it, and I was telling him, well, you can have knowledge and understand, like you can have two of the three, right? So if you have knowledge and you have the logic, but you don't do the output, well, either nothing changes or, it gets worse. It's not usually going to get better. So the positive outcome isn't going to happen. And so that's if you have these two. Okay, so let's say you have just logic and the output, and you don't have the input. Well, your understanding is going to be in confusion, so then you might be engaging in folly. You're not going to be engaging in the wisdom. So in either of those cases, you're going to have a certain level of understanding, but your output, you're still going to be, well, in the first case, you're not going to be doing an output, so things aren't going to change really. In the second case of having logic and rhetoric, you're going to have an understanding, but you might be missing pieces. So then your output could be foolish, even though you have some understanding, but you're missing a lot of the stuff to have a greater understanding to act appropriately. So for an example, we've talked about it, the understanding of objective morality. If you never received that information to derive that understanding and you didn't figure it out yourself, well, then you're going to be in folly. And, you could have just these two parts where you have input, a lot of stuff coming in, but you don't understand it or you're not processing it properly. And then you're acting on what comes in, but you're not applying the critical capacity. So it's just going from, everything comes in and then you're acting upon it. Well, that's usually going to be foolish behavior coming out. And there's no potential for otherwise. So I think, I explained it better when I was talking to you, Brandon, and so I don't remember exactly the arguments that I made, but I'm trying to recreate it and doing maybe a half-assed job.
You can't take one out of the equation.
Yeah. Ultimately,
much
they're
you
all
said.
yeah. My conclusion was they're all three of them are necessary, but yes, I would say logic is the most important, because if you don't have confusion, if you don't have the understanding, then what you're going to have is confusion, because you're just going to go from here to here, and that's just going to produce foolish outcomes because you don't have the understanding. So it is the most crucial, because as I said, you could have this and this. You can have the knowledge and the understanding, or the grammar, logic, and you're not going to be doing anything with it. So you're not going to produce any negative outcomes. The negative outcomes that are already being produced are going to continue, but you're not going to make things worse, so to speak, because you're not going to change anything. You're not acting upon it. And if you have the understanding and you're acting, well, you're acting based on your current understanding, which means you're going to, if you're doing this optimally, you're not going to engage in greater foolish behavior, but you could already be engaging in foolish behavior. So, it's not optimal. But the worst one is when you don't have the logic part being engaged in, and it's just, you're fed bullshit and you're going to output. This is where it's straight up garbage in, garbage out without any chance of any clarification or filtering or discernment. It's just the worst outcome when you don't have logic. So they're all important. They all play their part. They're all crucial. But I'd say, the logic one is I'd still say it's the most important amongst them all being important, but that's my reasoning for why. So anyone wants to talk about that, and I guess we could end it there.
I'll be the devil's advocate real quick, because let's say that, we're in this landscape of drunken horses and stiff robots. In a sense
I don't
of,
understand that. Or what does that mean?
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of drunken horses, totally, buzzed off of the Kool-Aid and stuff, because, the draconian matrix, disinformation machine is running 24/7. So this is the type of logic that is being lodged into the brains of many people. And I kind of want to make the claim that possibly, this popped in my head when you were thinking, possibly the understanding aspect is the most important, because we have all types of info coming into us, streaming to us, all the time, all these narratives pushed on us and all these things. It's up to us to do our due diligence and have the responsibility to weed out the inconsistencies and really think for ourselves, and do the proper cross-referencing and research to recognize and realize, are these real lies being, spoken to us? And is that influencing our thought process as well? And are we able to, weed out, think about it like this. There's the mental landscape, are you a proper alchemical gardener in your mental garden? And you have to, plant the proper seeds and weed out the inconsistencies as well. And yes, we have to take in a lot of proper information for that to happen, but it has to go through this process so that we can act accordingly. So that's just something that is just fresh off the top of the dome, if you will, in hip hop terms. Trying to stay, you know, in control of my own domain, as every individual should, right? Because if you are not in control of your own thoughts, then someone else is, right? So yeah, take it back to gubernare, etymologically speaking, mind control, right? We need to control our minds, be our own internal monarch, or have that proper sovereign individual governance upon ourselves, and not the exterior sides of things. So yeah, that's all. I'm not claiming it to be 100%, like, yeah, this is all like kind of, we're, mentally, exercising with, the trivium and all these aspects and philosophies, epistemologies, and codes of consciousness. Are you keyed into those? Jerry, you know about them, right?
The keys to consciousness?
Codes of consciousness. Just, objective morality and things of just, staying aligned to the divine. And
Right.
hopefully everything should be fine, right? So.
Yeah. Well, there's this one thought in my mind that's been lingering, so I'm just gonna like say it. So yesterday I was looking at, I want to say, Indica Martin's work on the trivium for kids, and I think it's really important to teach them that. So it goes something like when they're, I'm just gonna say, like in their high school years, that's when they learn the rhetoric stage. I'm getting the numbers wrong, but the youngest is, they're gonna learn the grammar stage, and then in between is the logic stage. And I'm also just thinking in my head, like which step is the most important, but I think they're all connected. So, but I'm excited for this next Launchpad, and thank you, Kris, for having me on.
Darn, we just had Adrian in. I wanted to hear if you had a question or if you had something to say.
Yeah, he's been popping in and out. I don't know if he fixed.
Y'all can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Are you live or are you still on like YouTube delay?
All right, just making sure. So, you just hear what went on. I don't really hear Kris. He said on YouTube.
You're cutting in and out.
How to think.
Is it just me?
For me, like,
Does anyone else catch that?
Yeah, I think it's his connection because he's going in and out.
He's in Wi-Fi outside. Not very stable. Yeah, wired connections or my whole house. We don't have Wi-Fi. I don't like Wi-Fi. I view it as potentially harmful. But yeah, if you do connected, probably have a better connection or closer to your Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, Adrian, it seems your connection is going in and out because when you're
Okay.
talking, for 2 seconds we can hear you, and then it's dropping. It's going in and out, and you keep dropping from the actual live feed. So it's probably a connection issue. Yeah.
Right.
So if you are over Wi-Fi, that's
Right.
probably not the best when you're doing any form of live streaming. Yeah, you want to get on a wired connection, and if you are sharing that connection with other people, then that's possibly going to he'll make the other connection a little bit more weaker. But yeah, you want to be hardwired into your modem or to your internet.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the reality of the situation. I mean, I'm just, you know, got kicked out of my mom's house, and I'm out here joining a live stream on some random fucking cafe place. So,
Oh, we can hear you good now.
I mean, my bad.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Oh, now you just dropped out again. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, shit. And yeah, you go for it. And even if you're on your phone or computer, whatever, like it might be helpful to close other programs, applications that are taking up your bandwidth, the internet as well.
Yeah, like any chat services, just, in the background, like Discord, Slack or Guilded. Yeah, close those things down. That way, all resources are going toward, what you wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah, it was good the last 20 seconds, but then you dropped
So
out at the end.
I closed all those tabs. Should be steady. Hopefully, for the love of God. All right. So
Right on, brother. Thanks for sticking with it.
enlightenment. Yeah, of course. Enlightenment, like leads to me understanding thyself. You kind of have to like evolve in order to think for yourself. You have to be an evolved individual hype because of the just the natures on the path that I've learned so far. I've written a book about it, and I'm just only asking if it's true or not to the universe. So yeah, besides that, yeah.
He's cutting out.
It's not as okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you starting to cut in and out the hell again.
Yeah, hopefully you can come back
Yeah,
on.
it ties the ology and your makeup, the trivium and quadrivium.
Hopefully if you come on next
It can
week.
be likened to the 7 chakras and
All right. Hopefully next week it becomes
all
back.
kinds of other 7s. I'm a
All right. I'm just gonna. We'll continue with the ending. Yeah, Adrian. I don't know. You said you can't hear me. I don't know. Something's up with your. It looks like something's up with the Video Ninja connection because your video is never there, and sometimes it has like something's playing, like the video's playing instead, and then there's like a time for how long it's been playing. I've never seen that before. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, and then there's the connection issues. So he can't hear me, but he's got connection issues. So hopefully that's sorted out and figures out a better situation with his unfortunate situation of being, not too funny, but being kicked out of your house is never a funny thing.
Oh,
But
hell
it's
no.
pretty horrible.
It's cool he came on. It's unfortunate with the connection. It sounded like he has some really interesting, trains of thought going on in that, riff. But yeah.
But hell, I want to thank him for at least trying to come on, because it does take courage, to come on. So yeah, hell, I still want to thank him. He did try to hang around. And that's what it's all about, to at least make an effort to make an, hell attempt. We're not asking for people to turn shit into gold, we're just asking people to, just make an attempt, keep striving, keep pressing, keep wanting, to get better, So thank you, Adrian, for, hell, at least, hell trying and still hanging around.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could see my my laptop, it's been overheating lately and the fucking screen is just fucked up. So I got to get that checked
I
out.
think he's on mute.
No, I heard what he said.
You probably need to reapply your thermal paste to your CPU. Yep. if it's overheating, then you need to buy some thermal paste, then reapply it, and that should solve your problems. Then clean out your fans in your laptop, because that's the one thing that kills a laptop is heat.
Could just be the fan. If the
Right.
fan ain't turning, that's a big problem
Yeah.
right there.
Yep.
I'm a fan of keeping that shit proper.
Mr. Pun over here. All right. Well, we're gonna end it there, and yeah, we'll be back for well, I guess I don't know what I'll title it. Technically, I guess it's learning how to think part 4. But I'll just call it epistemology. Give it a different title instead of a part 4, and yeah, we'll delve more into that, because that's like I think it's the crux. Well, you know, it's dealing with the logic and the processing and the understanding part. Again, why I put so much emphasis on it. Because if you don't know how to know something, then how do you even know what you know, or what you think you know? It's probably you don't even know it.
Yeah, so
you just believe you know it.
I can't really see or hear Kris. Is he like, I know he's been talking on the YouTube,
Everyone
I'm
else,
correct.
you can tell him everyone else can.
but I
can
can't really
but
hear him.
He's got a
or
set
see.
up
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. Everyone else can hit Chris. I think it's just a connection issue on your end. But yeah, he's wrapping up the
Yeah.
show, and yeah, hopefully we can see you again next week.
Yeah, might need to practice. I don't know, with Video Ninja, because usually everyone has no issue. We've had Sarah Cross or someone else who came on, and she didn't seem to have an issue. So if there's an issue, usually it's I guess someone didn't do something right, or they clicked a button, or something happened. I don't know.
Video
know.
Ninja is just like, it's weirder than all like of the other platforms. It's definitely different because I've used it. It's definitely more unique than all the other platforms.
Well,
But
it gives you more options, so it makes it more
Yeah.
complicated. So you have more
Yeah.
opportunity to fuck shit up. That's for sure.
yeah,
Like I have
Yeah.
done. It's like I got to do everything myself. It's not just StreamYard, or
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you just click
Yeah.
here and everything's done for you. No,
yeah,
I
it's
got to
not
click a lot
as
more
user
places.
friendly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's more for the advanced kind of people.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I can handle it, but yeah, I forget to, like, oh, I got to do this extra setting in here. I got to click on the properties for the person that I added, and or else their audio doesn't come in, like happened with Jerry there. Yeah, sometimes I forget that.
Here's the title for the next one: Got epistemology or get pissed on?
All right. I don't think I'll use that title, but yeah, I guess in an ideal world, that's what happen. That would happen. Eh? What, you so fucking dumb? Here, we're gonna piss on you
Yeah.
till you learn right. That's mean, but anyways, I don't know how to respond to that. Cool. So thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Derek and Jerry, for coming on by and your contributions. And I guess see everyone next week. Great Work Launchpad, episode 14. And Shadow Work 12, dealing with epistemology. Some important stuff on being able to navigate and conceptualize reality accurately, to map reality, the territory as it is, so that you know where you're going, you know what you're doing, and you're doing it right. So with that said, have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for people participating in the chat, and take care. Peace.